getting an identity for myself, just getting into a space of knowing who I am. And as a believer in God, I actually started realizing that.
Welcome again to HealthSpace Podcast. I'm not flying alone. I have a co-pilot, Miss Natashah from Tash the Stylist. So it's just an open conversation as we usually do. You know that we talk things healthcare, we talk things wellness. It's all about making sure that the inner you is aligned, and it's all about making sure that indeed your cup overflows. And without taking care of the inner part, it's almost impossible to actually have that cup overflowing. Though the body may look all good, but the moment you start it, you start hearing different sounds because the inner part has not been taken care of. So yeah, today we have Miss Natashah from Tash the Stylist. How are you, madam?
I'm well, thank you. How are you, Luba?
No, all good. I'm talking to royalty today.
Oh my, really? Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the first time you hear of that from your walk, to how you walk tall, how you express yourself, the projects that you're busy with, and like basically everything you do, it speaks of royalty. And it is an honor for us to be actually talking with you and having this chat. This is not an interview, just to give that disclaimer to all the listeners. It's just an engagement, having a chat with Natashah from Tash the Stylist, and basically just to hear out what are they all about, and what are both entities doing, and are there any synergies, and at the end of the day, who gets to benefit. So yeah, Tash, who is Tash the stylist?
Oh, wow. What an introduction. Well, let me start by greeting your listeners. Good morning to all of you. My name is Natashah, known as Tash the Stylist in my workspace. The royalty part, oh my gosh, I didn't think you were going to throw that in. But I think I'll start by that one of the things that I really had to come into was getting an identity for myself, just getting into a space of knowing who I am. And as a believer in God, I actually started realizing that I am a daughter of a king. And so I have to carry myself, in such a way. I have to radiate that so that I can become and actually attract the kind of life that I'm meant to live. And that is a fruitful and successful life. And I think many of us struggle in so many areas of our lives because we're thinking, okay, I can thrive in my workspace, but we are failing in other areas of our lives, in our parenting and relationships and our finances. And so how do you bring all that about into your own life and space? And so just getting into that space of starting to believe that I'm actually meant, my life is meant for more. That's the space.
Wow.
It got me into becoming the way that I am slowly becoming today, and just identifying with that royalty and that that identity that I have so much at my disposal that I normally would not have believed in because of my background, where I come from, how we are brought up. So that is just really the shaping of who I'm becoming and why I see myself in that way. So yeah,
wow. What a mouthful. Like, I don't even know like how to follow up, because there's just so many great points that you've touched. But something close to my heart is identity. I think this is one thing that's actually the hindrance to Africa going forward. I don't think a majority of Africans know what it means to be an African. As such, we don't know what we're capable of. And I've noticed this. I mean, whenever someone does something great or something good, ungumlungu, like we always
Yeah.
associate greatness with another color, not our skin color. And there's probably many reasons why it is that way, but we won't dwell much on those. But now, how do we then move forward? And you also mentioned knowing where you come from. It's sort of a way that like propels you further, because you sort of like understand your background, your upbringing, and the exposure as well, and knowing once again your capacity. So how did you find this? Because I don't think it's something that one is born with. I'll speak, for example, from my experience. I won't lie and say I grew up lacking, but it
Mm-hmm.
took me to fail to actually get the very same experience that one would get from growing up lacking. That I mean, I would like to believe I was provided everything. I don't remember lacking
Yeah.
anything. So my story, I won't lie, where everyone always say, I'm coming from this background, you never had anything, etc.
Yeah.
But it took me to make, certain decisions that led to a couple of failures that were almost detrimental to my life, that I had to
Yeah.
start afresh. And that new beginning and learning from those mistakes sort of like reshaped my life. And I had to dig deeper, that is now to get to identity, get to alignment. Who is Lubabalo? And I do find a lot of similarities from what you've just made. I mean, talking of royalty, and there's just so much to unpack there. So you also mentioned that understanding where you come from and where you're heading. So let's dwell much there. So where do you come from?
Okay, so I was born in Zimbabwe. I was raised by my grandparents. My parents had me when they were young, so you can already imagine that kind of setup. My parents were young, and so they didn't even have the ability to look after me. So I was raised by my paternal grandparents, and
Mm,
you can imagine with our family backgrounds that they are doing the best that they can, make sure that we have food on the table, we have clothes. So the emotional building part of life, unfortunately, is one thing that many of us are lacking in our lives. I didn't grow up from a poor family, if I can put it that way, or
yeah,
heavily disadvantaged, because I will average life that even others in our communities actually saw us as the rich family, because
yeah,
home was extended way before every other home had big rooms and many rooms, and we had a dura wall around our yard. So you can imagine, already in society we were deemed to actually be the ones who
mm,
making it, but there was a lacking that was there, that was beyond just the material things. And I think
yeah,
that so many times we dwell on the material lack, that we don't realize that you could actually grow up in a very wealthy home,
mm,
but mind is not fed the nutrition that it needs for you to actually thrive. And I think that's the biggest for me, as I've grown up and matured into the woman that I am today, is realizing that it wasn't really money that I needed or the material things, but the kind of emotional support that would
wow,
tell me to become the version of myself that I was meant to be. Because some of the decisions that I made in life were not because I was lacking food from home, but it was because there was just that missing structure of support and feeding and believing and saying, you've got this, you can do it. And I think
yeah,
that's what really I needed. And I remember about 2 3 years ago crying in the middle of the night, and I realized that it wasn't it wasn't that I needed money or that material things were missing. It was so much so that I needed the women around me when I was growing up to speak life over me, because I looked at my life and where I was and what I was going through at that time, and I realized that I didn't have the support that I needed, because I couldn't even go to anyone and say, this is what I'm going through and feel safe. So it's creating those safe spaces within the family context, within, the environment that in society that we're in, that we begin to speak life. Because when you look at white people, when they're growing up, they believe in their kids. They expose their kids to structures that we normally would not have, where a little child will go swimming in the ocean because they've believed that they're capable of doing so much more with their life. So swimming in the ocean is nothing for them. Whereas us as adults, we are so afraid of water because nobody ever just said, try, go ahead and just try. So I think that identity in speaking life over each other is the beginning and the core of everything else that builds the blocks of our lives. Because without that, we don't know who we are, because we've been made to believe that we'll always be secondary citizens. We're not good enough. We'll never be able to achieve even the things that we. And that is what brings so much fear and limitation, that we end up just saying, maybe it's not for me. Even if in the core of your spirit, that it's burning inside, that you want to go for this, but there's no one clapping for you and saying, go ahead, you can do it.
Wow. Sure. You've touched on so many points. Like, I'll start with the latter. You mentioned swimming. In Mthatha, there's Tata Dam. It's quite a nice big dam that goes from closer to Mandela. It's a location there. I think it's Mandela Park or Slovo Park, yeah, all the way to the airport. And I've always wondered, like in other provinces, there's always activities around the dam. There's settlement around the dam, but there's nothing there. So once again, going to beliefs, why does it seem like our beliefs sometimes are always holding us like backwards? Because there's stories that there's a big snake that stays there, this and that. And these superstitions, unfortunately, they're not edifying our lives in any way. Because, I mean, there's a rural area around the dam where kids would actually be learning to swim. There should be also activities there like boat rides, speed boats, etc. But there's nothing, because we're just scared of water and we believe there is this thing that stays in the water. Even the houses like old houses that are built around the dam, they're facing the other way. So there's no dam view or anything, because somehow something will be staring at them. Like, yeah. And then you mentioned a vision. Like, I don't think many of us even understand what a vision is, or even worse, we don't even know, like, have our own visions or like vision boards. And you mentioned support. This is one thing as well that we lack within, the Black community, where we would attend like sports days or whatever activities our kids are involved in. You mentioned speaking life over each other, and you mentioned listening to inner voice. I think all these points that I've mentioned, somehow, they linked to Tash the Stylist and what you actually do, your business. And can you take us through that?
Okay, so I think, well, let me start from when I was young. I've always been in love with looking good and beauty. That has always. I remember growing up, I'd go to the shops and I started color blocking my nails way before color blocking started. I'd go to the shops, and there was this particular man who used to sell nail polish, and so I'll go there. I think it was, well, if I actually say the amount, it's going to reveal my age. Oh my God.
Age is just a number.
It used to be 1 cent or something for one finger. And I'll go with my 10 cents. Well, let's say 10 cents. And then he would put red, glitter, all those different colors on my hands. Then I'd go home and I'd always get in trouble with my grandmother. Oh my gosh, you want to be a prostitute? Why are you painting your nails? And, so already it had a bad connotation for me that, so doing this is not good. Whereas I think if that time I had been told, okay, we see that you are in love with this, right now might not be the time for it, but there's nothing wrong with you learning about it, because already it was them thinking I'm going to grow up too fast beyond my age. So fast forward years later, I go to beauty school because I'd always been passionate about that. I had tried other things and I just didn't find joy in that. And eventually I said to myself, stop, hang on, leave everything you're doing, go and do the thing that you want. And I studied skin and health. And in that, I already knew what I wanted to do, that I wanted to create a safe space for people to come, relax, refresh, renew. Why? Because the world is dealing with so much. We are going through a lot. And this was even before I could tie it in with the fashion side. It was just the holistic side of things, where I just said, I want people to relax. I want people to have, these treatments, facials, massages, so that they have their own little sanctuary that they can come to, offload, and then go back and thrive in their different spaces. And as I grew in my work, I actually realized, why not actually bring in the fashion aspect? Because our lives are not separate. Everything that we do is tied together. And I can't even remember what advert it was, but it stuck with me. And I think I heard this advert probably when I was in high school. It said, when you look good, you feel good. And when you feel good, you do good. And that
Wow.
like that stuck with me. And then that, as I was evolving in my work, I started realizing that I not only want to create a safe space for people to come and have massages, but I want it to be a holistic lifestyle, where you look at your spiritual life, where you look at your emotional health, where you look at your how you show up and how you dress. And because that has an impact. I mean, first impressions matter. How you present yourself is how people are going to take you. Either they're going to take you seriously or not. They're not going to take you seriously. How you walk. Do you walk with confidence? So that then just evolved into a space where I said, I want this space to be a place where we glow up, where we become the best visions. And I thought about it, I like to look at life in our day-to-day lives. And I said, if I were to be an ambassador of a nation, how would I show up?
Wow.
How would I show up in that space that I've been sent? Because ultimately, each one of us here on earth, we have an assignment, we have a duty, we have things that we are called to do. And so we are an ambassador to the things that we are called to do. We are custodians for the duties and the responsibilities that we've been given. And how are we going to show up? Are we going to show up in a way that people will look at us and be like, can I really believe what this person is saying? Are you believable? Because if you see me and I tell you that I'm in the health and wellness and beauty industry, you will have to believe it, because I show up. I show up. I'm intentional about what I'm doing. Yes, I might have days where I'll want to wear my sneakers, tracksuit, and I'm not even saying that every day I have to, but I am intentional about when I present myself, how am I packaged? Because that speaks to everything. And also, even not just to the people that I'm meeting, but to me as a person. I take myself seriously, because I'm like, okay, I think you might have an idea of what you're doing. And then I begin to believe in myself. And that belief eventually awakens something inside, that each and every day that you do that for yourself, you are becoming more and more alive and awakened and aware of yourself. So there's an awareness that, comes into play of, oh, actually, I have a responsibility to do, and I have to show up for it. So even when you are not feeling like showing up, you're going to have to show up, because you've got a duty and a responsibility to do. So it becomes a thing that you think about every day, and you become that version that you want to be as you keep walking that path every single day. It's like a road where there's no road and there is
Yeah.
eventually, if people keep walking that path, eventually a pathway is going to be created. So what pathway are you creating in your mind, in your parenting, in your relationships, in your finances, in your health? Do you exercise? Are you intentional about looking after yourself? So those are all the pillars. So I like to look at life in the different pillars that represent us, that in all those pillars, how am I thriving? So if I'm on a 5, then I need to elevate so I get to the next level, because it means I'm not doing well. If I'm not succeeding in my finances, then I need to see, okay, what's happening? How do I elevate? Who can come into my space that can help me to get to that level? So yeah, that's how I look at it.
Wow. Thank you so much. Already I can picture a doctor that's so occupied. I'm saying a doctor because these are our clients and they're very
Yeah.
close to our hearts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're nothing without doctors. Already the nation is sitting at 0.3 per thousand. So it
Mm-hmm.
means doctors are overworked.
Yeah.
Burnout is the order of the day. And now you're mentioning coming at your place to refresh, to renew, to offload. So, and I don't think this is something they do often, and not just doctors as well. Sometimes you think you are sick as a patient, only to find out that you need a space to refresh, to renew, to offload. And comes Tash the Stylist and is actually offering these services. How does one get hold of you?
So you can find me on Instagram, Facebook. I am Tash the Stylist. And also you can contact me on 078 928 7706.
Wow, thank you so much, Tash. There's just so many points that you've touched on. I think we actually need to break it down and sort of like have a series and just pick one point from everything that we've discussed, and then we really go deeper there, and then we move to the next point, because I think we are so pushing in life because life uh, there's no mercy, life is life.
Yeah.
So you have to wake up, you have to push every day, you have to put food on the table, to a point that we forget about ourselves while we're trying to accommodate everyone around us. So you bring in a very important point that at some point I think we do need to be selfish, because you cannot give from an empty cup. And
Very true.
yeah, from what you've just mentioned now, I mean, talking about vision, talking about taking care of yourself, talking about building yourself as a brand, as in how you look, how you talk, how you walk, all these things. These are the things that don't need you to have money. It's things that are within you, but you just need to dig deeper or to look inwards and be able to find those. And once you find those, your life becomes completely different, and
Yeah.
people are drawn to energy. And you may wonder why a certain caliber of people are always drawn towards you, only to
Mm.
find out it's the energy that you give. I mean, a
Yeah.
moth is not told that this is light. It just sees a light and it's drawn to the light. You switch off the
Mhm.
light, then it leaves. So we are like that even as human beings, just that at times we're not aware. And we are so busy that we forget about the basic core principle of being a human being. We are in a journey, and there's no car that just travels without refueling, without service. So but we always miss those parts. So I really appreciate you, and we've shared so much. I do think we actually need to plan around this and have a nice series. We're talking health space, we're talking healthcare, we're talking about rejuvenation, we're talking about offloading. There's just so many synergies as well. While from the health space side, we're trying to create accessible, affordable, and quality care. Those that give care actually need your services from Tash the Stylist, because when I
Mm.
seek care, at least I should feel like the person that is providing care also got, their side all together. At least
Yeah.
that seem to be on a roll.
It,
So
it,
yeah, there's just so much that we need to do. And yeah, thank you so much for your availability, and let's chat and see how we can channel this ship. Let's sail the ship to see basically where we get to. We don't have a destination as such, but let's see, yeah, where it leads.
Yeah, no, fantastic. No, thank you so much, Lubabalo. It's been such a great conversation, and I think it's conversations that we often don't have because everyone is just in a rush to get things moving and done. And one of the things I always remind my clients is that, when you get on an airplane, they say if ever there's an emergency, you put the oxygen mask on you first. That's the one thing I get about life. Oxygen to you first, because like you rightly said, you can't give from an empty cup. So we forget to nourish ourselves. I mean, we work so much that I always say one day you're going to look back and the people are going to ask you in your life, because you'd have missed out so much on a well-lived, balanced work-life environment, that even your kids, your partner will say, yes, you said you were working hard for us, but we never saw you and we never enjoyed it. So what was it worth it?
Wow.
Was it worth it? And you would have missed out on living your best life, because you can't get back those years. You will never
True.
back. So if it was hiking that you loved and you missed out on it, guess what? Years from now, you won't be able to hike because you're getting old, you're tired, and you're thinking, can I really go up that mountain? This is the best time. This is our prime time to live the best lives. And so if we don't find that balance, we're going to regret it for the rest of our lives. But thank you so much for having me on this platform. I really, really appreciate it. And I look forward to many, many interesting conversations that will come out of this.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you. May you have a great day, Feather.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.